So when we think of teaching, we often think of instructions, we think about the transmission of knowledge, we think about rules. But what we found with the Prophet ﷺ, he taught differently. He didn't begin with the intellect or the mind, rather he began with the heart. This is because he knew a heart that is open will naturally receive knowledge. A heart that has love will naturally obey. A heart that feels seen will naturally grow. So the Prophet ﷺ understood these realities, and this is what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at how was it that the Prophet ﷺ was able to engage with young people and bring them into Islam in a beautiful way. Number one, the first point here, he saw their heart before their mistakes. The Prophet ﷺ didn't focus on error or on a mistake somebody made, rather he focused on the person behind it. Like there's a beautiful example they give of the young man who comes to the Prophet ﷺ and literally asks permission to fornicate. He literally asks permission for this. And this is an honesty from the man. He's saying, this is my situation. Like, I'm happy to accept Islam except for this one thing. The Prophet ﷺ doesn't shout at him. He doesn't tell him the punishment. Instead, he reasons with him. He explains the religion to him in a gentle and a beautiful way. And then once he's explained why this action is wrong, he then seeks to heal him through his blessed touch and through the dua that he made for him. Yeah, so through this we see the Prophet ﷺ is transforming in this way. Secondly, he built confidence before instruction. So the Prophet ﷺ, if you look at the way he was with children and young people, he didn't start with rules. He would start with empowerment. So when he's speaking to Abdullah ibn Abbas, what does he say? He says that know that Allah is always with you. This is the first thing that he says. Know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always with you. Like to have that confidence and that certainty before you now go on to learn knowledge. To start just with knowledge is not going to impact the heart. But once you understand that you have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that you are connected to Him, this is what's now going to allow for that knowledge to really penetrate. The third thing, he gave young people purpose. The Prophet ﷺ, he knew young people. He knew teenagers and he knew that they desire some type of purpose. So he made young people feel like they belong to something greater than their own selves. It's amazing. The most important companions are often teenagers. And look at Musab ibn Umair. He was a teenager and he was sent to Medina Munawwara to spread Islam even before the Prophet ﷺ arrived there. Usama bin Zayd, again barely 17, he now leads an entire army. We see with the great Sayyidina Ali, similarly, is given incredibly important roles of responsibility from a young age to give him a sense of purpose and a sense of belief in his own abilities. And this is very important. Once we start to trust our young people more, we'll start to see a lot more from them. Yeah. Number four, he connected knowledge to the heart's experience. So every time he taught something, he connected it back. So when he spoke about gratitude, about being grateful, he would connect it to the blessings that people have in their lives. When he spoke about Allah's mercy, he connected it to experiences of being forgiven. When he spoke about patience, he would use stories, he would use moments that soften the heart first. So this is very important. Knowledge isn't some abstract thing. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ brought it alive and he allowed this knowledge to touch hearts. Number five, he created an environment of love. No real transformation can occur when you have an atmosphere of fear or judgment. The Prophet ﷺ allowed a safe space for young people to ask questions, for young people to admit confusion, for young people to admit to being imperfect. One of the most powerful examples of this is the Bedouin man who literally came in and he urinated in the masjid. Like a shocking thing to do. Urinated in the masjid, and the Prophet ﷺ didn't humiliate him, he didn't scold him. Instead, he smiled at him and explained to him the reality of how a masjid should be treated. There was no fear, there was no recrimination, no judgment in that regard. And that moment became a turning point for this individual, mashallah. And we see this with many, many others. Number six, he knew a soft heart learns and a hard heart resists. The Prophet ﷺ understood that if people are not ready to receive knowledge, they will resist knowledge. And this is why, by the mercy of Allah, he was gentle with everybody that was around him. And this gentleness was deep. It wasn't some type of weakness, as people misunderstand. This was actual strategy. This was actual wisdom. And this was actually the true path to attaining lasting change. That once you have a soft heart, this type of heart becomes loyal. It becomes courageous. It becomes teachable. It becomes accepting of whatever you're now going to pour into that heart. Yeah, and this is very important. There's not a single companion except that they love the Prophet ﷺ more than anybody else, and therefore the teachings were resonant. Very, very easy. The teachings flow naturally once this love had been established. So in conclusion, we have teenagers today, and really they're drowning in information. There's so much information available now, but there's no connection. Yeah, they hear reminders, but the reminders are abstract from them. They rarely feel understood. They rarely feel like they can take these reminders. They learn rules, but their hearts are distant from these rules. So they have no real desire to actually implement any of these rules. So if you want to actually return these young people back to a correct path, then we have to nurture the heart. Our approach is wrong, and as educators and instructors, we have to admit that. And even as parents, we have to admit that. We have to admit that our approach is wrong. And once our focus is on the heart and we follow this true legacy, this true understanding of the Prophet ﷺ, then we will see a change.